good afternoon on where you are in the world. So, advanced molecules, broadening the toolbox, more complicated molecules. You need to stay very alerted when you are in a manufacturing, in particular, when you combine that with the number of patients that we want to serve. So, it should actually be a dialogue up here with Markus, and I will have to say these days, being working with manufacturing development and manufacturing in this company, the requirements around that is that you stay very alerted. You are very interested in what is going on already in preclinical, in phase 1 and in phase 2, because if you're not prepared, then you will not reach the many patients we want to reach. So you saw the numbers of insulin patients, diabetes patients, and Markus also showed the number of obesity patients. The combination of what they're doing in R&D, actually early research and development, and what we are trying to do in manufacturing is to take all the complications, all the advanced molecules, and make it as simple as possible, because that serves more purposes. And I will come back to that. I also have forward-looking statements. So just to start with, some perspectives of how we are doing in the scaling part. And we have actually served 5 million more patients in just 1 year, last year. That's by far the highest growth of patients in Novo Nordisk ever in 1 year. How can we do that? I brought some simple numbers on the right-hand side. We are increasing our organization significantly. So we have moved in just 2 years from 16,000 employees to 25,000 employees in just manufacturing. They need to be trained, they need to be educated, they need to fulfill CGMP requirements before they go into operations. We do this worldwide, all sites. It's not a trivial task. Secondly, we have now scaled our CapEx organization so that they in 21 could handle 6 billion in CapEx investments a year. Now in 23, they could handle 26 billion, and you saw the number for this year, and I will come back to that later. We have moved the number of Ozempic pens. We have moved that 3 times up since 21, and our API manufacturing output, here we just picked semaglutide, I think it's relevant for you. That's 4 times up in 2 years. So there is a significant scaling ongoing. And then you also know that the announcements, and I will come back to that. You also know the announcement of our CapEx programs that we have done last year. They are of course not in operations already now, so they are part of our future scaling. Let's talk about volumes. We are the clear leader in the world in diabetes volume. We are the clear leader in the world in diabetes GLP-1 volume. We are the leader in obesity GLP-1. How do we do this, and how do we plan to continue this? We have more than 50 years of experience in high-scale API manufacturing. We have used many, many years of experience to build, to optimize, to utilize existing knowledge into new products and new molecules. It's very, very important task that you keep this vehicle running in everything you do in manufacturing. Because the key is, in particular, if you base your product on our existing platforms, then we are up to a head start when you continue your growth. So in particular within API, it's process industry. Many of you will go to the site tomorrow. You will get a glimpse of what we're doing. You will be impressed. And this is the example of accumulated experience in our business, how we have worked with this so that we can scale even faster and even bigger with smaller footprints. We are not done with the API. The API needs to go into something. So the biggest platform that we have is fill finish, glasses, liquids. We have a significant already installed capacity worldwide on cartridges and vials, and we are building the syringes. And you also know we started a few years ago with actually moving our semaglutide API into a tablet technology. We have also for many, many years been producing our own devices and scaled our own devices in different generations. So we have noticed the interest about volumes and scaling, so that we will focus on that. But I'll just have to say, manufacturing and scaling and volume is nothing without product quality and compliance. So that's very, very important. It start with patient safety, it start with product quality, and it start with living up to the expectations on GMP regulations that are ever increasing. So that's also a game. The last part of the game is having a sound and ever improving productivity. Why? Because first of all, it served the financial circulation of funding back to Martin Lange and Markus's area in research and development, bringing innovation height even higher up in Novo Nordisk. Secondly, of course, it's a competitive edge of manufacturing, having the lowest possible unit cost with the highest possible quality. Our manufacturing, it looks pretty smart when you see it on a slide like this. It looks like we designed it this way. It's of course evolution. It's also evolution. And you all know this is a Danish-based company. We started the business in Denmark. We have kept on expanding our capabilities in the country. So we have a massive presence of API manufacturing in Denmark. We have 3 sites producing API for our products. And then lately, since 2015, we started planning expansion in North America. So there we have 2 sites. We have by far the largest platform on yeast. That is the platform that we use for diabetes product and obesity products. Then we are actually, the media are not paying that much attention to that, but we have actually quite a significant expansion ongoing for cardiovascular and emerging technology capacity, also here in Denmark, also on API. So that's also important, and it speaks back to what Markus talked about, the potentials of other platforms than yeast. So we are also expanding that. Then we have E. coli and synthesis that we also need to use. The CapEx investments are focused on scaling API, and we will continue optimizing those with better yields and expansions. Another important task here is that when we sneak around and listen to the R&D folks, what they're doing, it's really important to try to get it into the installed capacity and the expansions that we are doing. And what we try to do is to build in flexibility so that one example is that we cater for whether the company wants to use the capacity for the oral compounds or they want to use the API for the injectables. It's even more important when the next generations of obesity medicines kicks in. Then from API to fill finish, our Global footprint is now expanding due to our wish to buy the Catalan sites, 3 Catalan sites. We are now expanding from 11 sites to 14 sites. They are placed across the world, and now we colored them a little bit so you can see where the Catalan sites are placed. But all the sites that we have already, they are all expanding. The newest site that we have is our Ireland site that we actually bought for tablets. We have both manufacturing development people there, but we also have manufacturing there. We also intend to expand that, both for our oral semaglutide tablets, but also for example, Inversago. So we have expansions ongoing all places. We try to balance this so that we have regional supplies, and we are serving as close as possible to the markets. Let me just talk to the 3 Catalan sites. There's one major site in Indiana in US. There's a smaller site in Belgium, and there's a significant site in Italy. Why do we want to buy these 3 sites? So first of all, the sites, they are already operating. So for us, that means that in this case, there's 3,000 well-trained employees already in the sites. They speak the same language as us. We can talk manufacturing, we can talk optimizations, we can talk CGMP compliance. The buildings are there, well maintained, and they're operating. This is, of course, a significant advantage compared to pick a greenfield somewhere in the world, starting finding the people, starting finding the construction, and then start from there. So that is what we want to do with these 3 sites. And it's also important to repeat, and we also said that in the announcement, we do not plan to interfere with the contracts already in these sites. These sites are going to serve the existing contracts to the existing customers in the sites. Our plans are made on top of this, so that's important. Finally, from fill finish to the patients, there is some significant elements in choosing the right devices and choosing devices or platforms to scale. So now I just took some well-known pictures of devices. So from the left-hand side, you see our well-known connected doable device for insulin patients. So I only need to produce one of these for a full year consumption, because they get the cartridge and they get the medicine. The vials, normally they are designed so that you need 1 per month. Our FlexTouch pen is also approximately 1 per month, because the cartridge is designed so it can take 4 doses. Then come the famous single dose device. That's 1 dose, and in obesity medicine nowadays it's 1 dose 1 week, and then you throw the whole thing out. And of course the tricky part here is how to scale this and what to select if you want to scale your opportunities. So it's really important, back to Marcus's presentation, that the molecules are designed so that they can be scaled, but it's also important that the delivery systems are chosen, absolutely both from an environmental point of view, from a CapEx point of view, but of course also, please remember, the patients, they need to stack these pens up in the fridge. So the smaller it is, the better it is for everyone. We will step up our CapEx investment, of course, also in this area to follow the pace of the API expansions. We will, in this case, utilize CMO partnerships. That is not possible in the API space. We are the only one producing this kind of API. But in this field, there's many people out there you can team up with that can help you producing. We will try to push, again together with R&D, for less frequent dosing. And again, in this area, we will do whatever we can to design and build for flexibility in case that we change direction over time. What does it sum up to? Here's a very simple overview of how we are trending in our CapEx program. We have doubled the program from 21 to 22, from 22 to 23, and then we have also almost doubled it from 23 to this year. So I can tell you, and you will also see that in Kalundborg tomorrow, those of you that are going there is major activities ongoing many places in Novo Nordisk. We've just summed up our announcement. You see many of these are within API until now, and of course fill finish will follow. Please be reminded that when you're using 45 billion in CapEx in 1 year, then you're not done in that year. So it takes a significant time to build advanced manufacturing, get it validated, get it approved, and it's not only one approval. We want worldwide approvals. We want approvals for all the countries in the world. So you need to go through all the countries and all your authorities to get the factories approved. That's very important. Sometimes you forget, why don't you just build a factory and then produce? You cannot do that in pharma. You need to get it approved, the products and the facility. Then if we take another look and we take on the most famous brands that we have, then you will notice on this slide, and that's what I try to illustrate here, is that we intend to use the same manufacturing technologies, the same setup across these drugs on API. So Rybelsus, Ozempic, Wegovy, soon to come CagriSema, potentially amycretin. We plan to use the same setup, the same type of manufacturing technologies for these kinds. So there's major synergies in getting this right from the get-go. On the below side of the slide, we are still expanding our tableting technologies and capacity. We are, of course, expanding our FlexTouch. That's our main pen for Ozempic and Wegovy. We are expanding our single-dose device for in particular, Wegovy in US. We are now designing our dual-chamber pen for the launch of CagriSema, and then we will continue utilizing our existing device platforms. So when you look at this, one thing that you need to take away is that we are extremely disciplined in trying to get as many as possible compounds, medicines, and opportunities for Novo Nordisk into the same API systems, because that holds a major advantage within scaling, regulatory approvals, competences, etc. And then we are more flexible on our fill finish and on our devices to basically scale. Final slide. We have used 100 years in Novo Nordisk to get to around 42 patients. And with the CapEx plan that we have in place, the understanding of the potentials of the molecules and the brands in the market, the patient reach, the relevance in the market, our abilities to scale, we are planning to serve significant more patients the next period. So what you need to take away from this session is that we believe that we have the expertise, the scalability within biologics. We think that's a significant competitive advantage for Novo Nordisk. We will continue our CapEx investment programs to serve the potential that we have in the market, the many patients, and certainly also to move even earlier in the R&D pipeline to make sure that we serve a broader and bigger Novo Nordisk, also from a science point of view. We have plans in place now for serving many more patients in the next period. Thank you. And then I will invite for a Q&A session with those that has already been on the scene, including the CFO now.
That's important.
That's very important.
Good morning. I see a good energy here. A lot of people raising their hands. So with limited capacity, then I think we'll have to do it based on some house rules. So we'll do 15 minutes of Q&A. So now it's for you to work, and please state your name and please restrain yourself to one question per person. So we go with the sun. The sun is almost out. It's Denmark. It's March. So we go from the window here. So here.
Morning, Rajesh Kumar from HSBC. Just on the capex plans, thanks for explaining how you're scaling up. If you could give us color on how fungible the investments are to next generation products, like when you move from Ozempic to say CagriSema, can you still be able to use the same facilities? And within that piece of question, you mentioned that the Catalent plants will continue providing to the existing customers, the contracts. When the contracts end, can they be repurposed?
There was two questions.
So there's two questions. So we are very disciplined here. So which one do we want? Number one or two?
The first one.
Okay, the first one.
The first one.
Flexibility in our factories.
Yes, we have stiff eyes on CagriSema, of course, because that's the next generation of obesity medicine in Novo Nordisk, and we can use the same facilities.
Right. So we move here. Seamus.
Thanks, James Fernandez from Guggenheim Partners. Really the question is on that scalability question and the way that amycretin can actually slot into the sub-Q formulations over time. It seems like that's something that can move very easily into the overall FlexPen device over time. So just wanted to get a better sense of that strategy.
So now we are close to the forward-looking statements because we are very early, right? So that's important. But the way that we see it right now, it's actually exactly the same answer as before. We think we can use the same facilities and the same devices that we are scaling right now.
All right, thank you, Henrik. Then we move to Pete.
Thanks, Pete Vidal City. One question. The last slide, Henrik, you're starting with 40 million patients, and we know the market's going to be 1 billion. If we took it illustrative, you have illustrative on the slide. If we took that away, I mean, we all know you're going to supply it to hundreds of millions, but the scale of your ambition in terms of how much the market you can supply, any ballpark figures you could give us there would be helpful.
Yeah, we have not prepared for that question, right, Carsten? We have prepared for that question. So I will try to give you the most flavor that I can, because the products are also different. So it's also a matter of which product we decide to produce in the facilities. Let's assume that we have the box that we have now announced. So that's important. For me, there's some differences. What is the strength? What is the yields, and et cetera, et cetera. But it's still within the same sort of ballpark. You probably all know the dynamics between oral and injectables. But let's just talk about the injectables. And then I'm back to my slides with the missing figures. What we are doing here, because we of course have all seen now the potentials in obesity. That is, we are taking the accumulated knowledge that we have in all the facilities that we have within insulin, and then we have redesigned the whole thing so that we, on the same footprint, can scale much higher. That's our plan. And what it leads to, that is that depending on the sort of the portfolio of the products that we decide to put in the facilities, and of course also the scalability of the equipment.
Great. I think that's as close as you get, Pete. Then
I can feel how they look at me.
Sachin Jain, Bank of America. A question for Marcus on the amycretin data you've put up. I'm sure you're expecting this. So questions on what's not on the slide. So what dose is that data at? And could you flesh out the safety in any more detail relative to CagriSema? And then I just wanted to be super clear on the profile that you interpret. To us, it looks like a little bit better than CagriSema, which was, I think, 10% at 12 weeks, and a decent chunk better than Lilly's Orpho, which is about 6 or 7. Just wanted to confirm my understanding is correct. Thanks.
Yeah, whether that classifies still as one, but let's talk about amycretin. So obviously we'll share much more detail on amycretin, actually on the molecule, but also on the trial and what we know preclinically in due course. So you'll get a deep dive on this. What you see here is obviously what makes us really excited in terms about the dose. As you know, it is really hard to compare across trials and how long patients have been on top doses and so forth. But all I can say is we feel A, this is a very competitive profile. B, the slope of the curve looks promising. So at this juncture, no sign of plateauing. And third, and maybe also as a scientist, that makes me really comfortable, it fulfilled nearly all predictions that we made from preclinic and everything that we knew from CagriSema and the individual components. Yeah, so percentage points up or down, we feel this is a really, really good place. And keep in mind, for the first time, we combined here 2 separate entities into a single molecule. And additivity of these effects was not necessarily given when we set out to design the molecules. So we're very, very pleased with what we're seeing.
Right. Thank you, Marcus. Then we move to Mark Purcell.
Thank you. A question on GLP-1 fill finish. Catalent has provided a roadmap, effectively going from a unit of 1 to roughly 7, 23 to 26, and then doubling that, so going from 1 to 7 to 14 units of fill finish capacity behind GLP-1 medicines by 2030. Could you help us understand your own ambitions using those 3 steps, and how important you are, how reliant you are on Catalent to make that progression? Thank you.
Yeah, like plans for Catalent, customer commitment, and then we build on from
First of all, customer commitments, and we have been looking at that, and we have also been in to see what is the potential of these facilities compared to how we run our own facilities 24/7. And they will play a part of our capacity build, also a significant part of it. That includes, and that's why we can fulfill the customers' obligations in there, that of course include that we are installing more equipment in those facilities. And the technology that we are moving in is the same technology as we are moving in across our own sites. So there's no sort of, it's a linear flow. If you take the whole sort of global picture of fill finish that we look at, whether it's CMOs, whether it's the Catalent side, whether it's our internal expansion, you see a fill finish that will follow API expansions.
Right. Thank you, Henrik. Then it's Michael. Can we have a mic too?
Thank you, Michael Novo from Nordea. Maybe for Marcus on the technology that is used for the once monthly GLP-1 GIP. Is that sort of also universal technology that could potentially be applied also to a once monthly amycretin?
So we are exploring a number of, infrequent, maybe to start back, infrequent dosing for us, I think is an important area, because we feel actually that will open up a new innovation space. And whether it is once monthly or beyond, I think we'll need to see. So one thing is obviously we have different technologies, right? With siRNA, for example, it is in the core molecules that we see very long-lasting effects. When we have incretins, obviously we're using different chemistries then to prolong those effects of those incretins. We are obviously very interested, and maybe that is the core of your question, in technologies that are suitable for a number of key molecules out there, that if we wish to do so, we can deploy this technology. And those technology investments for us will take precedence over just solving for a single problem.
Thank you. Then we move around the table to Martin.
Martin Packer, SEB, and for Lars, maybe on one of the first slides of the day with the illustrative graph of the sales development long term, could you elaborate a little bit on your thoughts behind the development of semaglutide post the LOE? What is your thought process? Is it due to Henrik's job or whatever?
No, but it's clear that I think we have one of the perhaps largest categories ever in say the pharmaceutical world, both in terms of number of patients, but also in terms of number of units to be produced. And bear in mind, as long as we look at injectable therapy, these are highly complex presentations in high volumes. And when you start mapping the world, there are very few products like that. So it actually takes a lot to serve those patients. So we feel that we'll probably see a long period in front of us where we'll be launching these products. So the classical modeling of, say, 4 or 5 years of uptake, plateau, and then decline, I believe will be much different for a molecule like semaglutide. And it would take, say, a disruptive technology to change that. And I don't see that around the corner. So we'll be building capacity to cater for many more patients going forward. And we believe we are the best suited company for also serving those patients after a loss of exclusivity.
Thank you, Lars. Then this is a very active table. Richard?
Thanks, Carsten. Richard Vosser from JP Morgan. Maybe one back on amycretin. I saw at the top of the slide the format of oral and subcutaneous, I think, at the top of the production slide for amycretin. So just to confirm that you'd be looking to move both formats forward. It seems very good as an oral, but obviously flexibility within injectable. But just to confirm that. Thanks.
So there you'll have to hold your breath until Martin Lange comes on stage in some of the later sessions. Sorry about that. So we go to Simon. Okay, Florent, you take it, and then we move back to Simon.
Good morning, thank you. Florent Cespedes from Société Générale. Quick question on the monthly GLP-1 GIP. Do you see anything different on safety and efficacy profile, and could you use this platform for maintenance treatment? Thank you.
It's too early to say, to be honest, whether there's anything untoward. We don't expect this, of course, but it's early clinical testing, so we would be monitoring. You've seen on my slides that I think weight maintenance is one of the 3 dimensions. I think for innovation, one is efficacy, the other one is scalability, and sort of weight maintenance, quality of weight loss are important elements for us. So anything that is infrequent and makes it easy for patients and or prescribers actually to do this, I think is certainly in play.
Yeah. Thank you, Marcus. Simon?
Thank you. Simon Baker from Redburn Atlantic. Another one for you, Henrik, on SEMA. You very helpfully gave us indexed levels of API capacity at 2 time points. I wonder if you could give us the same indexed levels on semaglutide yield. So where were we before? Where are we now? Where could we go to? And just as a point of reference, where is mammalian yield compared to yeast? Because that's the most likely route by which biosimilar competition will come in, rather than trying to emulate your yeast process. Thanks so much.
So Simon, before Henrik start out, then we'd rather not get into detail on specific yields. So Henrik, perhaps if you can speak about the platforms and why we believe that the yeast-based platform is highly competitive, generally speaking, for proteins and peptides, and our approach vis-a-vis yields on the mammalian platform also.
Thanks, Carsten. You just saved me. So I'll give you another perspective, actually, because the interesting part of us expanding quite heavily, both on the mammalian platform and on the yeast platform, is actually we run it the same way. Meaning that the technologies and our base core competences, we use that both within mammalian and within yeast. So one data point is, why do we expand mammalian capacity in-house when there's so much mammalian you can buy? Because it's too expensive to buy compared to my unit cost. So that's also about yields. And it just shows that our technology and the way that we operate these technologies in large scale, continuous API manufacturing, they are quite competitive. Even if there is installed capacity out there only on mammalian, not on yeast, we still are expanding ourselves. And we are, and now with the new products coming in from R&D, also within cardiovascular, that is a competitive advantage for us. And if you, sorry for the long answer anyway, so if you combine the sort of the build-up on the unit cost and the full manufacturing cost, then API is our core technology, and the scaling of the API is a smaller part of an injectable medicine, no matter what we use it for. So that's my answer on yields.
Thanks, Henrik. And then we move to, yeah.
Hi, thank you. Steve Atkins with Poland Capital. I'm curious what, as semaglutide continues to expand usage, what you've learned about patient adherence and how to improve patient adherence, whether through devices or patient education.
I think we'll get a bit back to that later, won't we?
Yeah, let's take it under the TA sessions. So now we'll have to do the final question for this session because we all need a break. So last question here.
Hopefully it's quick. Emily Field from Barclays. On amycretin, you've long said that the bar for amycretin is CagriSema, which I've interpreted as good as. Based on the data that you've seen in the phase 1 thus far, do you think it can now be better?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to speculate on phase 1 data. As I said, to previous question, we feel it's in a very competitive place, and it's really consistent with what we've expected. So obviously, another cliffhanger here, Martin will share with you really exciting progress, how we take it actually through clinical development onward. And I think then we have much more solid data to at the end of the day, answer your question.
And we don't set bars for efficacy, so.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Marcus. That concludes this part of the agenda. Now it's time to stretch legs. It's 15 minutes